Hey everybody, this is Nathan with the Gospel Tech Podcast, and I have got a really exciting announcement. We have a new partnership coming up with Christa Ministries. Here on the West Coast, Christa Ministries runs camps and schools and radio network, and their ministry that we're partnering with is called the Purposely Podcast Network. What that means for you as listeners is you are going to find your podcast in the same spot, so no change there. It is still the same content. We are still an independent ministry. We're just partnering with Christa to reach more families, to help them love God and use tech. You will see new cover art. You might get a couple duplicate episodes while we transition to this new network format. So you might be getting one from our old Gospel Tech send out and then the new Purposely one. So just be patient with us. But I want you to know that the whole premise of what we're doing here is to reach more families. Your donations still go to Gospel Tech. We're still an independently run nonprofit. And what I want you to be aware of is as we get the summer content coming, we didn't want people to join us and go, wow, this is really great. There's now 120 plus episodes I have to get through. So the summer's going to be a crash course in Gospel Tech. We're going to highlight one episode that tackles each of these kind of top interests. So areas from parents. So smartphones, video games, pornography, safe tech at home. So over summer, you're actually going to hopefully hear some of these episodes you've already listened to. And if you're new, welcome. We're really excited to have you. You're going to be able to hear in the next 6 or 7 weeks a 10,000-foot view of what it looks like to connect our daily tech lives to the gospel. To our faithful listeners, thank you for being here. To our new listeners, thank you for joining us. Our hope in doing this podcast has been and remains that we would be an encouragement for families, that we would provide practical tools that help you fight for your family, not just with them, about tech, and that we would equip you with both the resources and the confidence you need to raise healthy youth in a tech world, to raise kids who love God and use tech. So thank you for being here. I think the one more thing I would add is we are actually getting our first advertisements ever, which is going to be a blessing because that will help us continue the funding for this resource and make this a blessing for even more people. So do expect to hear those. Thank you for being a part of this journey with us. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me directly, nathan@gospeltech.net, or you can find us on social media at Love God, Use Tech on Instagram and Facebook. So with no further ado, let's get this conversation started. Welcome to the Gospel Tech Podcast, a resource for parents who feel overwhelmed and outpaced as they raise healthy youth in a tech world. As an educator, parent, and tech user, I want to equip parents with the tools, resources, and confidence they need to raise kids who love God and use tech. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gospel Tech Podcast. I am Nathan.
I'm Anna.
And this podcast is dedicated to helping families love God and use tech. Yes, that is right, everyone. Anna is back today. Good to have you.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's been a while again. So no promises on when it'll happen again. But today we were thinking through kind of these other episodes we've got planned and these other things we've got on our heart, and really thought, you know what, let's actually just talk out our family plan. The last few weeks, other than that one rather surprising episode, which was how do we handle hard stuff in life, we've been talking about kind of summer prep. So we have a summer, well, we sort of have a summer.
The kids are on summer vacation.
That's true. We can start there.
That's what we have.
If you guys aren't in the Northwest, you are probably having a heat wave right now. And I'm sorry, I guess, for that. But
I'm jealous.
if you are in the Northwest, you know, I'm pretty sure it's been over 70 degrees. I think 5 times was the last
We saw
count.
the blue sky for like 15 minutes today.
Yes, you can count it in minutes each day.
It's gone.
And it's gone already. I'm looking outside right now at just a gray blanket of awesome. So the reason we bring that up is we are headed into a summer season of at least schedule, if not weather. And that will change some of our goals. So what we're doing today, and by the way, Anna's getting all this for the first time because we think it's fun when we bring her in fresh and ready. I'm going to talk about some of the things I've talked about with the families that we've listened or who are listening.
Okay.
So, and in the previous 3 episodes, I said, here's how we prepare for summer. First thing is going to be, what are our goals for summer? So we're going to do that. And then we're going to talk about how we kind of apply a little bit of some of that for us. And then I set up some like family safety for tech ideas, and I'd love to buzz those past you too.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yep.
Cool. Consider this a planning meeting. All right, everyone, here we go. First, Anna, actually, could you give us like a quick update? What are you reading or listening to? What's something that's going on in Anna's?
I have been reading, I'll tell you the books that are relevant for this conversation, because I feel like I took a little hiatus from reading things that are tech related, but I just read iGen by Jean Twenge. Yep. If you're a parent right now, which you probably are if you're listening, I would really recommend that. It was kind of about this generation, probably a little bit older than our kids. I don't know if our kids still fall into the iGen generation. That's what she is calling the generation that has been raised to not know anything other than the internet. Really, really interesting, very research. She has done all the research on this generation. I can't remember where she's out of.
That's somewhere. I don't remember what university she's through.
She's great. Really interesting. And just kind of, I feel like does a good job of kind of towing the line of like every generation is just different. And parts of each generation are great. And parts are maybe going to be hard. And they're going to change buying habits and how we interact and all of those things. And just like they have for every generation. So, but it was eye-opening. That was a good one.
San Diego State.
Oh, San Diego State. Okay. So a lot of her research is from that. And then other national research that she's done. And then the other one, I feel like I just have to give a caveat. Neither of these ladies are Christians. So just know that going in, there's no gospel connection in these books, but I think good to know information. The other one is Dopamine Nation by Anna Lemke, and she's the Stanford Addiction Center head. That's not really what her title is. It's better than that. But sorry.
That's not what her business card says.
That's not what it says.
Sorry, Dr. Lemke.
Sorry. It was a really accessible read. There are some graphic descriptions of addiction in the book. So for sensitive readers or younger readers, I would say be warned about that. But she kind of just looks at addicts as a template for all of us, and how, at the very least, I think you could probably say we all have compulsive behaviors related to our phone, or at the least related to our phone, and probably in other areas. So at the least compulsive, and how do we look at how we treat addicts, and how can we learn from what's happening in our brain when we are compulsively behaving or addicted, and how do we treat that? That one was really interesting too, and surprisingly quick, accessible.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you on that, so some of these resources can be just terrifying. Like when you watch The Social Dilemma, you don't come away with I have practical ways to do. Yeah, you just come away with a ton of bad information, which isn't, not bad information, scary information that it's true, but it's not necessarily helpful. Are these helpful for families, or is this just if you want to get into more of the weeds of how's this working?
I think iGen, depending on where you're at as a parent,
and that's the Twenge book.
That's the Twenge one. That might be a little bit overwhelming.
Okay.
If you have older kids who are in it. If you're in a healthy spot, it's really interesting. Or if you have young kids
and can still do something.
Yes. Yeah. And not that you can't still do something if you have older kids. It just is. I'm thinking of certain families we know where that might just crush you. But if you're in a healthy spot and you're interested in that kind of thing, I think it's a really interesting conversation to enter into. The addiction one, I feel like is just kind of fun, not fun. It's funny to read as a Christian, because you're she's stopping just short of But I do feel like she leaves you with some really practical, here are some ways to reset the pain-pleasure balance, which was really reaffirming. I kept telling Ethan, she's on a 30-day reset. That's every addiction doctor will tell you, it's a hard stop for any addictive behavior. So that was really affirming for us to hear, because that's what we would counsel.
Yes.
As a 30-day
when parents come to us and say, we're having all these troubles with tech or smartphones or video games or internet.
And she gives you all the research on why and what's going on in your brain for why that is a necessary step, and why you can't just sort of piecemeal it out. I do feel like she gave you some helpful, tangible tips for either yourself or for someone in your family. She just stops short of the gospel.
Yeah.
Because maybe she's a Christian. She does not explicitly.
Sure, not in this piece.
It's not, it doesn't come out in here if she is. Yeah. Well, those two are really interesting. Oh, The other one, sorry.
Go ahead.
This was
Keep
a
going.
friend gave us this one last year, and it took me a long time to read. The Coddling of the American Mind.
Yeah. I should know his
name. It was an article these two guys wrote for The Atlantic, and then now this is their book. So interesting. If you are a parent or a grandparent, I feel like I can't recommend this one enough. It's just kind of how, again, these three all kind of work. I read them right in a row, and I kept being like, these all work in tandem. Like, you need to know all the parts of this conversation. And just like the culture of safetyism is the big culture or the myth that they're debunking in the Coddling of the American Mind. That's what our children are growing up in, of like, and this generation that's entered college right now, and the last, kind of right after us, really, like the generation behind, which I guess would be iGen, how the goal above all else is I need to be safe.
Yeah.
And how systems, not just parents, but all of our systems have kind of like put safety as the most important goal of like, we must protect them emotionally and physically, and how that
sounds like a good thing.
It sounds like a good thing. So they go, and these guys aren't Christians either. And they go after like just universal truths of any great ancient thinker. This is not a true. We don't, that people are made, and we see this in the Bible, we are made to be tried and to be tested and to have our faith and our resilience. That happens through trial. It doesn't happen through sitting safely.
Develops perseverance.
Right. Like it doesn't happen when I'm just comfortable all the time. Yeah. Like that is and there's no ancient teaching that would say satisfy every pleasure and just indulge.
Right. So we've turned into basically a culture of hedonists, and not the good kind of hedonists where there's an argument of, hey, when the John Piper line of argument of, if you are fully satisfied in Christ and you find all of your satisfaction there, this is no, like whatever little whim you've got, it's a good whim. You should go fulfill that through the internet, through technology, through your own. Yeah. And they're saying, no, that fails the test of science.
And they're not, I don't think these guys are Christians. They're kind of philosophy. One of them's a lawyer. Really
definitely not a Christian.
Sorry. I feel like when people are typically Christian authors, it's very obvious. Like they don't typically write in a way that leaves out their faith, and they don't mention anything about
and
God,
they're coming at it from a very specific psychology standpoint.
Yes,
it's Greg
but
Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt.
Yeah, that one was really interesting.
So we had three then. Coddling the American Mind by Lukianoff and Haidt. We had iGen by
Gene Twenge. And Dopamine Nation. Which that's the one that was a little mature audiences, probably.
Little asterisk next to that last one. I'm really glad we got to that.
I forgot I read all those.
You have been, and you read a lot. So that's just like the work-ish related.
Those were all really good.
Yay. All right. So you guys, if you're listening to this and you want some good, just by the pool summer reading, you can, or something related to this. I love Anna's book suggestions because she covers a lot of ground, so she can save us all a lot of the this one's not worth reading, don't pick that book up. So it's also awesome because when you hear these are ways for you to continue to equip yourself for these conversations.
Or if you have older kids, these are all.
Yep.
I think if you have older teens, they could read all of these, and they'd be really if I had a high school kid, I would make them read all of those books and say, we're going to talk about all of this.
Yeah, and Neil Postman,
and they're going to really love that. Their parents were English teachers.
Our children are blessed.
Sorry, kids.
My parents were
we all
so
bring
weird.
our own strengths to the table.
And our own baggage.
Write me an essay.
That's right. Anyway, that's what I'm going to ask from Hadley's first boyfriend. Go ahead and write me an essay on why you want to take my daughter out. All right. So then we're looking at the summer. And one of the things I told families is, hey, look at your summer and think about kind of fill in the blank. I also did this at the last couple of workshops I've done. At the end of this summer, I want my summer to have been insert the blank. What's kind of that goal word we've got for our summer, would you say?
I want to be outside.
So much outside.
I'm not even an outdoors person, but
yeah, this is Cat Anna saying outdoors.
And I feel like that's how you know the weather's been bad, is that I'm desiring to be outdoors. That really is. And even before we realized how bad the weather was for this June month, I feel like that was my goal in 2022 in January when I wrote down my year goals. I did write down summer goals, and one of them was to be, we have lake access.
We do.
And
We have access.
We have
You're
access.
not wrong.
It's not our.
We have family who's living on the lake, and we know them.
And so we're planning on taking advantage of their access to the lake. But I just remember last summer feeling like, man, somehow it got busy and we didn't. I just really crave those lazy summer lake days. And I think some of that is nostalgia from being, and we didn't have lake access as a kid there, but there's public lake access to this lake.
For the plebeian
and I
masses.
just have happy memories of like lazy lake days. And that's what I want for our kids is to have, and even if it's not at the lake, like to have those lazy afternoons where they're just throwing water balloons around and they put the sprinkler out under the trampoline and have water fights. I feel like all of that is just kind of going slow and enjoying being warm and eating popsicles and playing with friends outside.
It's outside. Like, so that
nature,
goal.
yes, to be outdoors.
We also have found that Hadley is like inspired by being on a boat. That's something in her brain. It's just like
she went on
life.
one boat ride last summer and has not forgotten. I go on boat. Uncle Doug, take me on a boat. Where's the boat?
When I go on a boat, and while on the boat, was like flipping her hair and like just soaking in all of the glamour that is.
So I'm hoping to take. Okay. That's my goal for the summer.
So if we have outside time, then how are we? Because that was the next thing I said. All right, you filled in your blank. Now, how are your priorities lining up with that? So what are we doing to make sure that it doesn't end up September 5th, kids going back to school, and we look and go, man, we didn't get outside. We didn't do any of this.
Yeah. Well, for the lake stuff, I really was like, I need to put it on the calendar. And I don't know if we can always guarantee it's going to be a nice day, but the kids really don't care if it's. I would like it to be 90 before I'm swimming in the lake. They don't care. So I think I just was thinking that last night. Like, I just need to pick a day in the next 2 weeks so we can hit. My goal was to get there once a month, which sounds silly. Like, that's nothing. Yeah. But somehow that can feel hard. So I'm like, if I can get one in June, if we can get 2 in July and 2 in August, that would be bonus. But I think I have to put it on the calendar or it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That's how things work in my head.
And I think that's how it works a lot, especially in American, like Western society, at least, is that we run off calendars. Like when you say, hey, so-and-so friends, you guys want to hang out? Like we have to put stuff down. And when someone gets sick, it's weeks into the future before we
I hope summer is a little bit better for that.
But I feel like calendars, like we do operate around that. So we put it down on the calendar and we now have those, which is amazing. And I would say for my goal was, while outside is awesome, like I really love the kind of what you mentioned, the rhythms of like family time, of like we get these intentional seasons. And so one of the things I saw was like, all right, how can we like just, I don't want to even go on like big vacations. In my head, like family time is like, how do you break that rhythm of like there's 5 days a week of school and like going to work every single, like how do you use some of this flexibility we have with work to go do a little hike or like be present in little things to just like be around, like be a part of that water fight. So I think one of the things that I had written down actually for that kind of family time thing was you early on were like, we're going to prioritize family breakfast because we don't always get family dinner, especially during like baseball season. I think we were hitting like 2 a week where we would actually eat together because there's some kid or other running to a little league practice at 6:30 at night.
This was our first time having more than one kid playing a sport, and we're hats off to everybody with multiple kids playing sports because it is not for the faint of heart. We're just figuring that out, but we did. Breakfast was a better meal for us to have together.
I think that's been something I've really enjoyed. It's like we plan that time in the morning. And so listeners, as we like talk this out, I know that family dinner is often talked about like, well, if you're not having family dinner, then you're not being a family. And I think challenging that a little bit of, especially in this era of like COVID work schedules, like a family meal is what we're looking for. We're looking for that time together because what's happening is not that dinner's magical. It's just usually in a more traditional rhythm of family life, the family gets up, goes out and does work. And then when they come home, that's the time when family would all be able to like congregate again. But some of us, like, it's easier for my family to meet at 7 in the morning. And like eat breakfast. I help make the meal.
And our kids are a little calmer in the morning.
That's true.
And they sit at the table a little bit longer at breakfast. So I feel like sometimes we can sneak in a really quick devotional. We can ask, they like are more engaged in a conversation than they sometimes are at dinner. Dinner sometimes feels like a disruption. They're happily playing a lot of the times, and it's like, we have to come sit and eat, and they're mad about it. And they just want to go back to what they're doing. And breakfast feels like they're still in their jammies and lazy. And,
yes, they still have their little sleepy eyes.
Yeah.
Blinking slowly.
I don't know how long that will last, but for now, that's good.
It's the best. But then like when we talk priorities for the summer, like we have family priorities, but like work is a real thing in priorities. Like we have a fundraiser coming up in August. And so I think just acknowledging listeners as you're thinking through your family, like it's not just, well, summer's magical because everyone has a teacher schedule. Like we recognize that like in our work, like the fundraiser is a huge portion of what we do because it's what funds our work. So we basically have 3 weeks of August that don't exist as far as like ability to do anything, because the week leading up to it and the full week after it, and then there's like intermittent days of prep and planning coming up to that, where we and people who have committed to this journey with us are pretty slammed. So I think that's a priority for us. So we want to be outdoors. We want to keep doing this work.
We're going to raise the money.
We want to stay funded. And then we have like bigger kind of trip ideas. Like I'm turning 40 this year, everyone. Whoop. Whoop. This is what 40 looks like. And it looks haggard and tired, everyone. But I'm gonna go fishing with my dad and brothers-in-law, which I'm very excited to do. That's gonna be a cool trip. And then our whole family goes to the beach. And it's like making time and space for those. Do you feel like that fairly well encapsulates like what our summer's gonna look like? Outdoors, staying in business, and like some of those
to the beach.
Yeah. So I think that was the first advice I gave to people.
Our summer goal.
Have that summer goal and then plan based on that priority. Like if your goal was maybe,
it might be too late to even make big plans.
For a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I just wanted to run it by you because I don't think, listen to those episodes. Am I correct?
I may or may not. I subscribe.
Excellent. Thank you for doing that. And you all should too, because I didn't do the introduction today because I was so excited to have Anna here. Thank you for listening and subscribing, and keep doing those things. All right. So here we are. Make a plan. Let's look at, we have kind of 5 ideas written out for what we could do. And here's what I have suggested. And again, listeners, this is going back to the last 2 prep for summer podcasts. You can go to 118 to hear a majority of these ideas. So Anna, the first thing I said, and this actually fits really well with yours, was get outside and do outside adventures. And my kind of thinking on this was outside is uniquely good at both exposing us because it makes us do things we don't want to do. Like sometimes you have to climb something and your plan wasn't go out and climb, but you're outside, or making us, I guess, be more creative with our activities. And then the other side is it makes us go slower. So then it exposes our attention deficit that we can sometimes build with how rapidly we check our phones or whatever. So is that as far as ideas for
getting outside?
Yeah, as far as getting outside, that's why I would say that one, because that's different than I think analog adventures, which is kind of the next.
Yeah, I think, well, again, not to harp on our weather, we just live somewhere where it's not always the most fun to go outside. So when we can, like we, even just going in our backyard and working in the garden is really nice. Of just everyone kind of recalibrates when we get fresh air. I do, and the kids do, and slow down a little bit with our brains and able to burn physical energy. So I feel like it's good for a million things.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. This doesn't mean you guys have to go on a week-long camping trip or plan some extravagant houseboat, which, by the way, those are amazing. And you just say you don't want to
I don't want to go on a week-long camping trip. I just I'm turning into my mother every year.
Who's amazing.
But it's just funny to watch it happen. Where you're like, oh, that's why she didn't want to go camping. I feel the same way. It doesn't always have to be something really big. I think we've tried to kind of brainstorm like a little list of local things. We live in a really beautiful part of the country, and
all 3 months a year.
All 3 months of the year. Yeah, it's beautiful all year. But there's just some local things that are fun to kind of like make a little list of, like, we want to go on the ferry and we want to have picnics outside or do some park. Like our friend calls it the tour of the parks, like
Yes.
even just in town, like parks that we don't normally get to go to, and just getting fresh air and seeing people.
Yeah, and that we notice a marked difference in our children just from like yesterday. Like they start getting really wound up inside, and our tell is when our boys start like RKOing each other off the couch, and like you can hear the intensity of their voices like escalate, and then we go, all right, get outside, and it like whether it's trampoline time or they go and one of our favorites is they start digging in the fire pit. But whatever it is, like that's a great one. So outside, and absolutely plan some of those. If you live anywhere near a national park, like play tourist and get out to those. I know we did this last year with Anna's dad. We just played tourist. So the boys and I and Anna's father went out to Rainier, which we live, you can see it from our house, but going to it and like going and like doing the walking path and seeing the wildflowers was mind blowing for me because it's been years since I've done that. And was really fun for the boys to do with Papa. And so I think giving ourselves a chance, like God made this amazing nature. We actually live in parts of the country where there are like, they're preserved and you can go see it in its natural amazingness. And so I would strongly encourage something like that. The second thing I then encouraged people to look at was analog adventures.
Okay.
And this...
What is an analog adventure?
Yeah, an analog adventure is fun in real life. So it's the fun we're having where we're not plugged in.
Okay.
And so it's going to happen at the pace of real life, and it's going to demand that other people be involved with it.
Okay.
So it's any kind of adventure we're having where it's not a digitally designed experience. So it's not a movie, it's not a video game, it's not, and that's not that those things are bad, but these are intentionally not those things. So example in our life was, so listeners, it was supposed to be posted to social media, but it hasn't yet. But we took our kiddos out and we ran our first pilot version of what I call, it's not a thing yet. In my brain, I have a dream of doing something called Analog Adventure Camp, which is basically we get kids out and you have fun in person and doing some kind of silly activity. So whether it's field days or whatever, and we did what we call Battle Club. And I say this because it was something we did with Young Life for a number of years, but basically it's tag with swords, everyone, also known as LARPing, for those of you who want to judge me.
Yeah.
Anna does.
Our kids love it, though. They have so much fun.
Yeah. But the idea of being like, okay, it's an analog adventure. We're doing this on purpose. And the goal isn't just, let's get outside or let's like calm our hearts and minds. Let's like go take a long walk at the beach. This is like, we're going to go do something outside on purpose that's intended to be fun. And so that could be like today, Owen, apparently reading a highlights magazine, was like, Dad, when are you going to take me rock climbing? I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, this has not been on any list, and Owen has a lot of lists. And he's like, I just read it this morning, and I want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So are there analog adventures we have planned? Like, is that something we're doing? Because it's a good idea. Like, I think everyone would be like, yes, people should do that. But are we doing that?
I feel like that was kind of our big one, the Battle Club. We have time. I think I've already said this, but we think we've penciled in days to like get to the lake and play with our cousins at the lake. And that's probably our biggest one. And then besides those, I feel like it kind of goes hand in hand with outdoor adventure for me. Like I said, we want to go on a ferry ride and we want to go to the waterfront and we live really close to like an animal reserve and like we want to go there and have picnics and see the animals. And I think those are kind of I don't know. I would delineate between an outdoor just being outside and why is it an analog adventure? Outdoor that feels adventures, intimidating to me. Like I have to make it extra special.
Which ones?
An analog adventure.
Analog adventure, I think, is the more intentional side. So on the outdoor, the way I think about it is the outdoor adventure is we're just going to do those little ones. Like it might be 30 minutes to go walk around the block, or like we're just going to get outside and breathe the air and have the sky and like just get out a little bit and get rid of cabin fever or whatever kind of digital haze we're in.
Okay.
So I think that's the outdoor adventure. We plan an hour with a friend at a park. We loosely plan it. We say, hey, we might see you there. We're going to be there between the hours of whatever, 10:30 and noon, right?
Yeah.
Analog adventures are where they're like, these are the more intimidating. They are intimidating. And they're really hard for us to, especially if we're not in a rhythm where this is normal, to plan. Like for us to go on a bike outing, for example, to get our bikes together and to get to the trail and to go do this. The kids want it. They
I guess
enjoy
I
it.
don't understand. This maybe isn't the best podcasting material.
Yeah.
I really am having a hard time understanding the difference between the two.
I guess one's more formal. So in my mind, an
But
analog.
why does it have to be more formal?
I don't think it needs to be.
Why can't it just be spontaneous? Like I'm thinking of Lindsay
Yes.
in Hawaii.
Hawaii, Lindsay.
Hi, Lindsay. She isn't going to plan.
Yeah.
She's not a planner. But every day of her life in Hawaii, and she's like, it's a little too 80 degree for me today. So
I don't know if you guys know, but it's still 80.
But like they hike and swim and do something outside every day. Like why does it have to be a formal
I don't think it does.
event?
I just, in my head, I'd wanted to like, I guess, let people know that it's okay to do. Like that's really good to hear that you think that sounds more intimidating.
That
to
makes
put it
me
that
feel
way.
like I can't do it.
Okay.
I don't have money to do that. It feels like a lot. It already feels like a lot to just plan a day to go on the ferry. That's my one like idea.
Yeah, okay. But this is good. So listeners, if you were listening to this and being like, man, Nathan is making this too hard again, this is really good feedback. Because in my head,
also, I'm the planner in our family.
Yes.
And so Dreamy over here has ideas. Like you did plan your battle club.
Uh-huh.
But I feel like everything else is I have to do it. So when you're saying we're going to have these analog adventures, I'm thinking like when and where, besides what we already have on the calendar for this summer.
Wait, hold on. So I think I'm hearing two different things. One is your dissatisfaction with your husband's ability
I'm
to
not
plan.
dissatisfied. I am saying those are the roles. Like that's my role in our family is to plan.
So let me then ask, is it the phrase outdoor adventure and analog adventure?
I think they can just be the same thing.
Okay, so let's just call them analog adventures.
Okay.
Is that all right?
That's great.
And that can incorporate going to parks?
And it can be as little as like, yeah, it can just be
Okay.
a little thing.
So then,
I don't think it has
listeners-
to be a huge, it doesn't have to be Battle Club every time.
No, it doesn't.
Or camping.
So if you were hearing this and you were feeling intimidated by just the scope and the hugeness of these ideas, please note that I was trying to delineate between how simple they can be on just a daily half-hour thing and then how you can dream big and sure, go nuts with that RV trip you've had planned and like go do those things that you were gonna drop the funding on something else, but instead you're opting into intentional fun in real life. That's great. Let's just call the whole thing analog adventure because I don't want to add any confusion. That's a really good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Sorry. I think that's helpful. And I think there's a good balance of like, yes, the spontaneity. And then I think a lot of us do have to plan that into our schedules because I think a lot of us are very bound with work and sports and kids' life. So if we don't intentionally say like, we're going to leave our phones in the RV or we're going to go camping and we're going to make purposeful time to be outside together, it doesn't happen for most of us.
So then
I think Lindsay in Hawaii hiking every day is an exception.
Well, and we have the priorities then, right? Like
Yeah,
Lindsay
yeah.
has a priority, like I want to get my kids outside, and she would say that. And like we're going to get them outside by hiking in rainforests and going swimming and
Right.
teaching them to surf.
There's
and,
too many turtles in the ocean.
darn turtles. If you guys ever want to meet someone who actually hates turtles, Lindsay might be your person. Apparently they're mean and will try to like nibble
There's
your toes
too many
and
of
stuff.
them. We're like,
So
send them over. We'll
there's-
come swim in the ocean with
there's
them.
that. But
Okay.
she doesn't really hate them. So we have analog adventures then. And then for an indoor thing, I just, as always, throw out the, hey, make a family game night.
You know what?
What?
We played a game outside the other day
I wasn't even there for it. When?
without you. All right.
Sounded more spiteful than maybe I expected, but all right.
You weren't there.
Go on.
Sorry. It was nice to play a game outdoors.
Outdoors. What'd you guys play?
We played, our kids are they're not really old enough to play Quiddler, but they're
that's a
starting
good
to
one.
be able to play Quiddler.
Can you explain it real quick?
It's a card game, and every card has a letter on it. So you start with like 3 cards, and you have to try and make words out of your hand.
Okay.
So kind of like Uno a little bit, I guess. But
It's like Uno and Scrabble.
yeah.
Yeah.
But everybody can read, not the littlest, obviously, but the boys can read. So they're starting to be able to piece words together. So we played that, and that was fun. And I feel like that was better because I like word games.
Yeah, that's awesome. And
Anyway, you can play a game outdoors.
you can play a game outdoors, but the idea, again, whatever the game time when we talk, in this case, we're talking analog games. And by that, I just mean ones that operate at the pace of real life, aren't digitally pre-programmed. They demand people, they demand your brain to be present, and you get a shared experience where the people playing are the experience, not the game is the experience. So
well,
there's no
not when I
filter.
was like, I just tricked you into making words. And it's summertime.
There are learning games.
You're learning.
Yeah, and
It
there's
was
a
good. And they
bunch.
loved it.
You can go back and find, I have articles on games to play and a podcast on the board games to play. If you are like, where can I start? I've listed them literally. I'll put it in the show notes, but listed it by age and whatnot. So games, play them. Making a meal together. Anna, when you saw this.
I saw that and I bristled again. Maybe I'm in a bristly mood. But then also, I just don't do a lot of our cooking. So I was like, I am not going to cook with the kids.
Yeah. Who are you to tell me to cook with the kids? So
Please don't
I put make a
cook with-
meal because it's a really easy thing to do with my children that I have to do anyway.
To do.
But like I need to eat. So
Right.
that's a half. Like I'm gonna eat something. I get the opportunity to cook my food, and why not let my kiddos, mess up the kitchen? So easiest meals for me tend to be breakfast or like auxiliary things. So breakfast being Hadley loves to help with pancakes. The boys love to help with pancakes. That's a common Saturday morning thing for us. Mm-hmm. And then if I'm baking like a pie, like every time a bowl gets brought out, Hadley just assumes it's another apple pie. So if you do some for fun baking, but like Owen likes to help with real meals, and there are things he can help with.
Oh yeah, they're
potatoes.
totally old enough, and it's a good way to we have to do this anyway, but we could do it together,
Right.
Type of thing.
And if you guys want to keep a compost, although we need a lid for ours because our fruit fly situation turns out that 55 and rain means that fruit flies do really well. But that kind of idea, like you can spiral off that. And then the last thing I said was when it comes to tech, to use it together.
Okay.
And that idea being we still have our priorities for what our summer is going to be. So we're not going all in on tech. We're not adding tech that we didn't intend to add. So I'm not saying but get your kid this piece of tech and let them use it. But instead we're saying, all right, we've already cleared this tech. We already have our priorities. So when your child is going to watch, play, and listen to whatever they are watching, playing, and listening, that you're going to be in that. And the questions that I really like are can you show me how this works? So we come in with curiosity and we ask our child
That's a good one.
to show us their favorite song or show us what level they're on or whatever it is that they get to kind of show us. We ask them a question about how it works. If they would say, hey, can you show me how to jump on a block? Can you teach me? Let them teach us. And that's really neat. Parents, if you have zero knowledge of your kids' tech, of how their social media works, of how their video games work, ask them to show you something and then ask a follow-up clarification like, well, could you show me how to do that? And then the third one is, can we do this together? Can we make a post together? If your kid's on social media and posting, do something with them because you've already given them that freedom. Let them bring you into that world. Play a video game with them. Again, they're already in there. They're already doing this stuff. They might as well have an adult with them at the time. And you're going to win big points. Like I still very much remember when my parents came in and asked to play. Now, they always got seasick playing a video game with me 100% of the time. But those three are kind of the three I gave. Do those seem reasonable, intentional?
Yeah, I think those are good.
Okay. Anything you would add to them?
No.
All right. So in ours, we're still without TV, technically.
Yeah.
Without the physical object.
Yes, we scale it back a little bit in the summer as far as
when you say scale it back.
I think we don't watch as much.
Okay.
Because I just keep kicking them outdoors. Like, goodbye.
Because you got 3 months, kids. Go.
Well, it's just, I like as soon as the sun is out, even when the sun is not out, but especially when the sun comes out, like, go outside. So I feel like every now and then we'll do a movie night or something, but
Yeah.
I feel like it's not as present.
Yeah. And that's because of our priorities, right? Our priority is
Yeah.
we're going out, we're doing those things. And in our lives, that still looks like we don't have the physical screens. Doesn't mean we never will.
Just a
means
laptop.
in this
And then
time.
audio, but I feel like we do a lot of audiobooks maybe
we
more in
do.
the summer for when we're in the car.
Yes. The Lord of the Rings has been in like 20-minute sections, listening to a 20-hour book, 20 minutes at a time.
Yeah. Okay.
That's kind of the big picture for when we talk about priorities. We have a plan, and then like we're going to have tech. And so building off that last note, like we're not saying, hey, during the summer, there's zero technology, but I think we do have to talk intentionally about how to keep it safe. So what I've talked about in these, how do we prep for summer? How do we be intentional with our technology in the summer months? I've really given 3 pieces of advice that it comes down to. So I want to run these by you. The first is get devices out of the bedroom and into public space.
I like it.
And that does it. When I say this, people kind of like, I'll get mental assent and then people just go, yeah, but it's unreasonable. Like, is that a reasonable thing to ask of families? Like,
I think it is. It's a mom and dad have to buy in first.
Okay.
Because I think it's a hard one, especially if your kids are older.
yeah.
So if you have little kids, I feel like you get more leeway with the double standard because
Double standard being like, you have a TV or you have a...
right. If mom and dad have a TV in their room
Okay.
or like keep a phone in their room, like if the kids are little, they might not notice. But if you have older kids and you're like, well, everyone's going to put their phones to bed, but I'm going to take my phone to
You
my
have an
room.
8th grader, they're going to call you on it.
Yeah, or if I'm going to have my Kindle, but you're not allowed to have your Kindle, like
Right.
I feel like older kids are going to start to push back on that a little bit. So I think it's a mom and dad have to be bought into that or be ready to justify why we disagree on this. I think there's a case for some couples to have a TV in the bedroom.
Okay.
I can understand that argument. And then, but not, I think it's a really hard argument to make for your kid to have a TV in the bedroom.
Yeah. Was it because of like they need a noise making machine in case of...
Yeah, I think it's a good,
Mommy daddy tickle fights?
yeah, it's a good, yes, I understand. Like, yes, it's exactly for that. For like, if we're going to go watch a show in our bedroom and it's a good, like,
Okay.
you know,
Long pause. Poignant pause. You guys know.
So I understand that argument. Okay. So the double standard, though, where older kids would be trickier and you need to be ready to explain and have those conversations with kids. Mm-hmm. In general, I think it was hard at first when we got our phones out of our bedroom. And now I don't regret it at all.
Yeah.
And I mean, we could send you all the research. There is nobody who is going to tell you it's a good idea to have your phone next to your bed or to be the last thing you're looking at, the thing you're checking first in the morning, the thing you're looking at in the middle of the night. Like there's just no research that is going to say that that's good for you as an adult. It's worse for your kid.
Yep.
So I think we have other episodes.
We do. And
articles
you can
on
bring
that.
us out for a live workshop if you'd like to hear the long version.
I think that's probably just the biggest place. And if you're bristling against that, I guess we'd just say, why? Like, what are you holding on to so tightly that you feel like you can't wait? Like, I think the just even average recommended time, like from, like Tony Reinke says it in his book, but even any sleep psychologist.
Tony Reinke is the 12 ways your phone is changing you.
Yes. But I think anybody, like a meditation person,
Sure.
just general health and wellness.
Yes, just mindfulness.
Mindfulness people would all say, like, you need to be off screens an hour before you go to bed, and you need to wake up 30 minutes, be awake for 30 minutes before you're on your phone checking anything. So all of that would indicate out of the bedroom.
Out of the bedroom.
And same would go, like, I know you've talked before about, like, most Kindles or tablets have internet access. So to just be aware of that if those are things that your kids are reading on at night.
Yes.
I think there is there a version? Oh, yeah, there's one, right? The Paperwhite is only a reader.
So full disclosure, I've not checked the latest version of the Paperwhite, but because most devices are pushing people towards downloadable things and those microtransactions and pushing ads and data stuff, it might have an app store now, but the original few iterations of the Paperwhite, the Kindle Paperwhite, which is literally just a white screen and it pulls magnetic ink around the screen. So it's just a gray scale, basically. It's very low tech and it reads like a book, which is really nice.
So there's no way for people to get distracted.
There were not. I don't know if that's currently true.
Okay, sorry. Now
that
we go circle back to the...
others all do.
I would say, like, it's great to be reading in your bed on your Kindle, on your Paperwhite. That Dopamine Nation, if you go and read that, she has a story, like, you can be addicted to anything.
Oh, really?
So, and the Kindle, like, just to kind of push on that just for a second, and I don't know how, I'm going to say it's probably more prevalent than we'd like to acknowledge. You can disguise very easily what you're reading on a Kindle.
Okay.
And that was this, the author of that book was very forthcoming with her own struggle as she's talking about addiction of just reading, like, basically soft porn, but then not being able to, like, compulsively, like, it became a compulsive habit for her. And then nobody knows what you're reading. So you're just in bed, like, reading, and no one knows, like, there's no, like, scandalous cover or how come you're still reading?
Right.
blank book.
Yeah, you can't tell that you're still reading the exact same, like page torn, like binding broken
like
book.
It seems like this book is becoming a bit of an idol for you. Just before we just give all books read it, whatever you want.
Yeah,
I think it's just to have a little.
I think it's a really good point. Like if you're not,
you can be sneaky with whatever you want to be sneaky with.
And I think that's the heart check that we have to bring before Jesus. So when we're talking about having devices out of the bedroom, it is for your sleep. It is for your spiritual rest and development. It's for your ability to be present. Couples, so that we don't get distracted past those little windows where maybe if there was no technology, like maybe something would have occurred romantically that wasn't planned or scheduled, and we definitely put those away when the technology is distracting for that one extra minute. Nothing kills some romantic flow like someone checking an email. That's right, but
it's business time.
It's oh, well done. Thank you, Flight of the Conchords. So we then move into public spaces, and I'll just be short on this. The whole idea behind that is it makes accountability easy, so it's not policing. It's, hey, the screen faces the rest of the room. When you're using the screen, we're assuming you're doing things that are accountable. They're under our family's agreement and under our expectations. Again, assuming families that you have expectations that have been communicated with your spouse, with your kiddos. So anything to add on the public spaces?
Nope.
Like why? All right. So public spaces make everything easier for everyone and make all future conversations easier. Then the last two are simply, as part of public spaces, as part of your family communication. We protect the network and we protect the devices. So to protect the network, it means that you have parental controls set up, that there are passwords on your computers and on their personal devices, but there's also parental controls on like what can be watched through Netflix or what can be watched through YouTube or whatever that is. So please make sure you're doing that. And on the home network side, there's two devices I encourage. If you're looking for a new router, the Griffin router is the one to go with. It has a lot of personal security stuff, so cybersecurity where it can stop people from getting your information, but it also has a wonderful app that makes it super usable. We're not sponsored by them or anything. We just like their product.
But if they ever want to sponsor.
But Griffin, if you're ever looking for a sponsor, we're here. The second side is Circle. So if you go meetcircle.com, Circle plugs into a router you already have. And a router's
put those in the show notes for people.
I have been repeatedly over the last few weeks. You can find them. But the Circle plugs into whatever router you have. You have a router if you have wireless internet in your home. So that's a kind of a test for you there. Circle plugs in, and it also has a wonderful app that allows you to just control what websites people join on any device that has to use your Wi-Fi, which brings us to personal devices. So parents' devices, so Anna, my smartphones, for example, as well as any other devices that can connect to the internet personally through their own cell service. Oh, and that's one thing I didn't say. Home network, so that Wi-Fi thing works with everything from those tablets that work off Wi-Fi to gaming consoles, to smart TVs, to old defunct phones that no longer have cell service. They still get on the internet through your Wi-Fi. And while you could individually go find safety settings in each one of those devices, working from your central router is way safer. It's way easier. And the apps on both the Circle and the Griffin router allow you to set kind of an umbrella set of expectations for all devices so that And it gives accountability. So when someone logs onto your Wi-Fi, you can actually see what they do. So you're like, hey, I saw that you guys were attempting X website.
Or if a friend comes over.
Yeah, if a friend comes over, their device has to follow your family rules, which is also a great reason to not have any devices in the bedroom because visiting devices are also expected to be left in public places. Yay. The second piece is personal devices now. Kid comes over with a smartphone that is not beholden to your Wi-Fi because it has its own internet. So in those cases, the kind of accountability side of what your family is going to do is use something like Bark. And so my reason for Bark, Anna, so on my personal phone, I have Covenant Eyes because it's primarily image accountability. So where I go on the internet, it's constantly scanning my screen and it sends accountability partners effectively screenshots of kind of here's where Nathan's been today. We didn't find anything concerning, right? So that's on a personal device. That's great. But with young people, images are a portion of what they have to process. They also have to process bullies and strangers and hard topics online like depression and suicide. And so Bark scans their text messages and their searches and their general internet interactions and then sends warnings when key stuff, right? It barks when there are key warnings.
I always think I'm sorry. Every time he says bark, I think it's wolf. Ryan
Woof.
from the
From the office.
sends you a fax, then a text, then an email all at the same time.
Yeah.
Woof.
When he's working out of like the closet after he comes back. Oh, all right. Thanks for that.
Sorry, every time that's what I think.
So Bark, woof. Bark.us does a great job. And it is really an intentional way to keep the conversation at the center. Again, we're giving our children these smartphones. They're operating in our house and in our purview with the assumption that they've earned the trust that we're giving them. And then this is just that second step. There shouldn't be anything we ever do that leaves us the lie that we're somehow anonymous. So this is just removing that anonymity and saying, I love you. I'm not spying on everything you've done. I'm not reading every text you send, but I am going to be aware of when curiosity gets the best of you or when someone's being mean to you, right? Like you're going to be present in that, and that's very loving. So personal devices is that we would use something like a Bark. It is a subscription, and I would just encourage you to think through if that feels cumbersome to you. I would just say by the time we're buying a smartphone, which the cheapest ones I'm seeing out there are like $600 to $800, this is just part of operating. It's like buying a car. Like you're not going to buy a car and then not insure it. And so it's just part of how we're going to be doing this. It's part of the cost that we have to bake in with the monthly cost of owning a phone. And so keep that in mind, personal devices. And then when friends come over, the expectation is that those devices are going to be left in public places. You can get a safe locking box for that. There's all sorts of cool ways to do it. So just keep that in mind. So that's kind of our summer living intentionally plan. Your thoughts?
I like it.
Okay. Yes. Everything I've told you guys isn't a lie. And listeners, I hope this was encouraging to you. I hope that you got to hear a little bit of how we're going through it. We didn't really have to talk through the last part because our kiddos are 8, 6, and 3, so they don't have smartphones yet, which is intentional, I guess, on our part. So maybe we should have talked about that. But
They have nothing.
they have nothing. Well, maybe a future episode, we'll come back and talk a little more about why. We've gone long today. But and on the home network side, what?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just wanted to touch base, like what are we actually doing? Because that was the whole point of we don't have any tech in our bedroom. Even our smartphones are down. We use a side alarm. We don't, with our home network, we just have a very simple parental control setup. But I'm eyeing the Griffin because my Google Wi-Fi router is going out. So we will be a Griffin family in the near future. And then personal devices, protecting Covenant Eyes for us, but Bark for our kiddos. If you guys have any questions to us, you can reach out, nathan@gospeltech.net, or you can find us on social media. While I have been terrible at posting to social media, we are live on there. We are responding to DMs and to comments when you guys do that. So thank you for reaching out. So that's @LoveGodUseTech. And you can share this with your friends. Make sure you like and subscribe if this is an encouragement to you. It helps more people find us, and you can join us next week as we continue this conversation about how we can love God and use tech.